freeze.
So in the aftermath of his passing, I mean, first off, if you look back on his career, is there anything you think in the vaults somewhere that's like some quality stuff that maybe Rick left behind?
Yeah, there were some songs that I remember that I thought he should have released, but I don't know where the vaults are, to know. Uh, uh, I know that at some point when Rick closed his studio down, there were master tapes that they had put on the street, and that because I had gotten calls later about that, and I had asked for them to to deliver, but I never got them. So I don't know. I don't even know what happened. I know that the house was taken in a tax foreclosure, and maybe the people who foreclosed took the masters, didn't know what they had, and got rid of them. So
It was nice when they put out that deluxe Street Songs on CD. They coupled it with the Long Beach Arena live show, so people were able
yeah.
to get a taste of Rick live at
hmm
his peak, which was very, very nice.
hmm
Um, how do you think Rick would have liked to have been remembered?
Well, I think Rick would have liked to have been remembered from '78 to '84, his heyday, and then even taking it back to his life in Toronto, and that uh, just as an outrageous entertainer who had a vision and had a sound that was unique, had a voice that was unique, um, and he cared about a lot of things, particularly uh, about how people were treated in the music business. And uh, I don't think he wouldn't have wanted a whole lot out there about the use of drugs, because drugs was a sickness. It wasn't anything other than a sickness. And you can talk about it all you want, but it's still a sickness. Not he should be remembered by the music. There's no preface when you go to a club and they start playing Rick's music or they play it on the air. Oh, Rick used drugs. There's no preface to that,
Mm-hmm.
and there's no preface to what's going on now with rappers and that Rick had a real important part in terms of getting their music out through what he did with MTV. The whole industry should take a step back and look at that, and look at what the impact of MTV was, and what Rick did. And no other act other than David Bowie would even stand up. None of the other acts. Not Prince, not Michael Jackson, not Stevie Wonder, not any of them. Not any of them would stand up to the record companies and to MTV and say what you're doing is wrong. And we knew, because we talked about it, that was going to affect his career. And that hurt him badly, because he knew that it was going to hurt him in the industry by taking that stand. So,
Do you think he should be in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame?
I mean, it's not relevant unless Rick is in it.
Mm-hmm.
You can have your little Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, but he's done more as much with that one thing. Not to say that we were on the charts for 52 weeks, and you got people in there who all they did was play keyboard or guitar on something, you know, uh, sold more records than most of those people in there. But
Yeah.
I think ultimately he will be. But in my view, it's not relevant until somebody like Rick is in there. You can say whatever you want.
Well, he's one of several glaring omissions, and most of them on the R&B funk side. Um,
Let me say this. A few years back, um, I worked on getting Rick into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, and we were just about there, and I pulled back. And I pulled back because I did not want to deal with Rick's estate. Let them, if they think they're going to walk up there and take some glory for Rick or whatever, let them go up there. Let them do the work that I did. And they haven't done anything. And that's probably about 10 years ago.
mm,
I mean, I think I was about an inch away from getting him into that. I met with all of the people from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. They came to my house in Buffalo, and we talked about it, and they gave me everything I needed to do. I did most of it, got in touch with a lot of people, got the necessary votes, and then I think one of them mentioned, let's get the estate involved. I said, I will not deal with the estate. Let them do it, and they haven't done a thing.
because they're just concerned about
They're just concerned about making the money.
the royalties on the
Yeah,
records.
I mean, Rick's career should be enhanced by a lot of different things, but I'm not going to even say anything because, I'm not giving them any free advice.
Yeah.
Uh,
Well, I think there should be a comprehensive box set.
there's a
Um,
lot of things that should be
yeah.
out there that they're not doing
Yep.
because I don't think they have a clue. But that's them. That's they're doing what they do. You know,
When you talk about his legacy, also, Leroy, what do you think of like the books that have come out and things like Tales from the Tour Bus? And have these things been fair depictions for the
no,
most part?
I think most of them are just garbage. They're self-aggrandizing garbage. Um, the stories, they're not fact-based. A lot of them, I could just tear them apart. I just did Reels TV, and if I had known that they were going to have one of the band members say what he said, I would have not had been on that program. I mean, the nerve of Levi talk about my mother and father on that program like he knows something about them.
Mm.
I mean, that kind of stuff. My mother beat my father, beat my mother. My mother would not stand for it. I don't care who said that happened, it did not happen. And you have no right to go on as a third party and say any of that. You have no right to go on there because, especially, your house is not clean. So, I've had a lot of fights with the band about some of the stuff that they said on that Tales for the Tour Bus. In fact, I cut them all off on my Facebook because of some of the things that they said. And I told them, I said, you should at least say something that's factual. And if you take Rick's name out of your life, you really don't have much of a life. So why are you downing him? The only reason they would be doing that is to self-aggrandize, to make themselves more important than they really are. You got those guys out there who, before Rick, they did nothing. After Rick, they haven't done anything. They were great on the road, no doubt. They were one of the best bands out there. But some of the things that they said, I had no respect for them for. And those programs that they've been on, the unsung and the rest of it, I think it's all garbage. Yeah.
So, how do you feel about them touring and kind of carrying? Are they carrying on the legacy, or are they riding on the coattails?
I think they're riding on the coattails, to be honest with you. I mean, those guys didn't do anything for 15 years before Rick died and 10 years after he died. Um, you know, uh, Rick's legacy, nobody knows about those guys. They play in some unheard of venues and that, and some shows that, I mean, God bless them for working. God bless them for working. But, they're not the same band without Rick, you know.
Well, I thought it was always interesting too. They did 3 albums and none of them really hit.
Well, I mean, if Rick did the writing for him, they probably would have. But I mean, that's another stretch for you because I mean, that's where Rick stretched himself out with all of those different acts. Too much writing. Um, it takes a lot to be a writer. You don't just because you're playing for Rick, that don't mean that you're a writer. Doesn't mean a thing. I mean, it's almost like sports, like basketball. You got 30,000 basketball players coming out of college every year, and only 30 of them make it. The same thing in music. It's difficult to be a writer, to write a hit, and then to write more than one hit. So Rick let them, one of the things with the Stone City is that he let them write their own material. So whether they made it or not, that was all on them. They're satisfied with what they did, so that's fine. With Motown, they want hits. So the last album, Motown really wanted Rick to invest his money, his royalties, if he wanted them to get another album, and the answer was no. I mean, they've had 3 albums. They're on my backup band, and I've done what I could do for them.
3 strikes and you're out.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, Tina was able to make it because Tina wrote her own material for the most part. And so really, all Rick did was give her a platform to jump off of, and she jumped off of it and did a swan dive, kept going. So he didn't really have to spend much time, but the others, they were all dependent on Rick. They were all dependent on Rick to make it, and it's just really, in the end, it was just too much. It was, Rick should have been just focusing on Rick. He had a lot of dreams. It's good to have those dreams, but at the same time, they take a lot of your energy, and I think he was a little depressed because of what happened when they left, and it's all 40 years ago.
Yeah. Well, the Stone City Band, really, I think their strongest material was the stuff that Rick was most involved with.
Oh yeah. I mean, as I said, there's like only one Prince, one Stevie. So Michael didn't even write his own stuff. What did Michael Jackson write?
He's got some songwriting credits, but mostly it was other people.
Yeah,
sure.
yeah. I mean, it just shows you how hard it is. If all you can do is play on everybody's stuff.
Well, unless you're a very unusual virtuoso playing, it really usually comes down to the songs and the compositions. Like you said, that's what endures and tends to be timeless.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what Rick had.
I wish a lot of these programs, they want to do their own Rick. They want to do their own narrative. Not one of them came to me and asked me what the narrative should be. I mean, you would think that the person who was closest to him, who knows all the dots from beginning to end, you at least ask something, But no, I mean, they create a narrative, and then the ones who've gotten into their narrative and have talked to me, it's like, why would I want to get involved in a narrative that you've created on my brother? I mean, that's my question. Why would I want to get involved in that? And get caught up with, these other people in there making these statements and here and there and the other. And it seems as though I'm giving them credibility by being on the same program.
Right, they're already coming from the wrong angle.
Right, so I tried to stay away from most of that, and it's interesting. A producer comes to me, they tell me I'm writing this, that, and the other. I said, oh yeah, you know more than I know about me or my brother. I don't think so. And I don't think that you will do it service. And some of them say, well, there's a lot on the net. I said, a lot of that is garbage. I mean, let's start with some of the Wikipedia that's out there, and the first line is that Melvin Franklin is our uncle. You know, that's ridiculous. If I read something like that, if the first line is wrong, why should I continue reading this foolishness? And that's what it is. You start out with the first line of some of these programs, and it's a false narrative.
That's got to be
So
aggravating. Got to be
it's
aggravating.
terrible. That's why I'm glad I'm talking to you, so I can give you what I think about things. I mean, it's not all, it's me. Sometimes I'm griping a little bit about these things, but I think I have a right to gripe when people come on and put this BS out there. That Tales of the Tour Bus is totally garbage. I watched one segment of it, and some of the stuff that was said on there. I mean, why would you even say something like that? And why would a producer put some of that stuff out there? Is anything fact-based?
Who's going to fact check it? They figure it's the gospel if it's coming from those guys.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, exactly. They figure the Stone City Band played on. They played for Rick, and they played for him as long as they played for him. Some of them maybe played 4 years, and there are others who had played for a little longer. But then there are other people who are not even Stone City Band who played longer. And Rick was composed of more than just the band. Rick James was a business. Rick James was a business with over 70 people working for him, and that's not including our lawyers, accountants, our agents, and some of our office people. It's not including those. So Rick was a business. Why don't you look at it as a business? They didn't go with him to any of these TV TV interview shows that we did, anything like that, unless Rick played. They didn't do Nightline or anything like that. They didn't go to U.S. Open or anything like that.
I'm so glad you're here to set it straight, LeRoi. I mean, this is truth and rhythm, and that's what we strive for. And I think, anybody who was really into Rick James music, especially from the get-go, is not so interested in the sensationalist aspect of it, and wants the truth and wants to stay more about the music than about a lot of that other stuff.
Well, I mean, that's the way it is. If you want to hear the truth, then ask them. I always ask, were you there, or are you just repeating something that you heard from somewhere? For the most part, most of them are just repeating something that they heard from somewhere. So they don't know if it's true or fact, and then they don't know the substance of it, because there's always some substance behind some of the things that are said. Like Rick was a very sensitive person, great business person, great musician. He had his faults, but at the same time, he did a lot that nobody talks about. Did more than write some hits.
Well, how do you feel about the parodies like Dave Chappelle and that kind of stuff?
Well, entertaining. Rick and I laughed about it. We laughed about that, and I remember telling him that I think Dave paid you better than you. He said, yeah, but and that's Charlie Murphy stuff was funny. He said, you think I let that Charlie Murphy kick me into a wall? I said, well, most of it was true, except for the fact that he said he kicked you into the wall. He says, yeah, we got into it. But that, Charlie and Rick were close, and Eddie was close. That was, Rick enjoyed that. It was, cause it was funny. It was funny. He can, he can make light of them, and he can enjoy that too.
Well, he must have had a good sense of humor if he was so close with the Murphy brothers, so.
Yeah. Well, I always thought on air, in the movies and that, Eddie was I guess tremendously funny on stage and that. In person, not that funny. In person, Charlie, very funny. And he was getting there also in the movies and that. I liked Charlie's serious funniness. Because he could put he could make some real stuff real funny, like that. This whole experience with Rick, that most of it all happened. The only thing Rick said that didn't happen is he didn't get kicked into the wall. So, I mean, that was,
Was there anyone that you recall that Rick really had hoped or wanted to work with and didn't get a chance?
well, I forget the guy's name, but um, the leader of the Buffalo Philharmonic, Rick would really wanted to do that. And we were all prepared to, the Philharmonic was going to do an album of Rick's music. I know he really wanted to do that, but he just never got around to it. When he had a lot of meetings about it, and it just didn't happen. I think that would have been something very interesting. It would have also given a different perspective on Rick and his music, how symphonic the music was, because it was very much adaptable to the Philharmonic mode.
That would be very interesting.
Mm.
So, as we wrap this up, I mentioned at the outset that you have a lot of paintings and art that you've done. Could you just talk about that a little bit so viewers and listeners are aware of it and can maybe go take a look at some of that?
Well, I have a website. It's called LeRoi Art, LEROI Art, ART.com. I've got a lot of different art from different periods. I've been painting for quite a while, since probably I've been 5 or 6 years old, drawing and painting, and I've been showing all over the world for the last 20 years. I just got back from 2 world tours. I toured Europe, Asia, and Africa, as far away as Singapore, Korea, and London, Florence. I just did some work in Egypt. But I like to put on one of my hats while we're here, because I see you got the baseball hat on, but I put on maybe 1 or 2 of my hats just to. They'll be out. New Era is doing some production for me. One moment.
Sure.
Okay, here we go. This is my baseball hat.
Wow.
And this is actually a painting that I did that had Rick in it. But this has I do this thing called colored people, and not because of colored people back in the 50s and that, but people are colored because everybody is made of many different colors. So that's the whole idea. This will be available soon. Made by New Era.
It's beautiful.
It's the baseball hat. And this is the cap, my Andy cap. And these are all paintings that I've done that have been adaptable to.
That's styling.
Yeah, it actually goes with what I have on. I was going to wear this, but I said, let me show you my gray hair.
It's getting like a lot of reflection off the light. Could you just hold it maybe a little closer to the camera so we can see the design better?
And it's still, I mean, it's a very, can you see?
Yeah. So you had no formal training; it just came from.
No, I just been painting for a long time, going to a lot of galleries, a lot of museums. I had a little bit of training in high school, my freshman year I had commercial art and industrial design. That's as good as I got, close as I got to any training. For the most part, I'm self-taught.
This seems like more of that sort of like you mentioned earlier, the Georgetown on one side and I think you said the hood on the other. Because you have the law and you've got the art and the
music,
the pragmatic and the artistic, and
right.
How's all that coexist within that head of yours?
Yeah, well, I feel as though people are made of composed of more than just one thing, and you can do as many things as you want to, and you can do them all well, or you can be sloppy and do none well. But like, you just don't have to be focused on one thing, especially if you're doing something like the law. You need to do other things to really expand your mind, your thinking. and art helps me with that, with conceptualizing some of the things that I have to do and taking that conceptualization over into the law or vice versa.
Well, the Buffalo Bills had a pretty good season this past season. They made it to the playoffs again. Are there any the musical scene in Buffalo now? Is it uh, uh, flourishing? Do you think? Might we see another accomplished person like a Rick James come out of that area?
Well, you're getting some people in the rap field who are doing some interesting things. I hear more about them. Buffalo has a lot of fine, great musicians here, but they don't have the outlets like they used to have. There's only a few places where they play. But I'm hearing about a lot of studio work being done by a lot of guys who are doing rap and hip hop music. I hear a lot about them. They are keeping the studios full. And a few boys just signed with Jay-Z, and some of the others signed with I think Dre. So they got some kids who are doing some things. And I saw a movie recently of some Buffalo hip hop rappers, um, and seemed to be a pretty decent movie. I mean, they're extending themselves and doing some things. So it might not be that era of Rick James and Joe Public and all of that. That may be something that may be history, which it is. Um, but now it's a new day with the young rappers.
Well, I figure, they've talked about Minneapolis, like it's so cold there that, you stay inside and helps maybe create more music. So Buffalo, I think, a little bit similar in terms of the
Yeah,
climate and
it is.
environment.
It is. It is. But I think it's just it's a vibe that a city might have that guys like Stevie B and a few guys from Buffalo have gone on to be successful. They got a whole crew that's coming up behind them. Uh, we don't have so many. Most of our guys are musicians here. They play in all the bands. They play jazz. They play all different kinds of things. But rap is what's happening now. It's happening worldwide, and these guys are on it. So hopefully you'll see somebody big come out of here in that venue.
We'll look for that. Um, Unless there's anything else that we haven't covered that you want to add, that you want to get out there, I get off your chest, we can wrap this up.
No, yeah, I don't know. It's I tend to try to just answer your questions and save the rest. But I plan on doing some things, my own things with Rick's story. I'm just taking my time about it because every day could probably be a movie. I mean that's how exciting it was back then. But don't always believe what you read, and don't always believe what you see out here. Um, that's my little word for the day.
So, but you do think that at some point you might get a book out there?
Yeah, I think so. I work with one of the guys, Peter Benjaminson. His book is probably one of the best books because I directed them to people that I thought were who knew about Rick and in Toronto, early life and later years and the rest. So I mean that's more fact filled because Peter was a bit an investigative writer. Uh, so I think that book has more depth than the others because it has the people who actually were involved with them, talking about what they knew from their knowledge during certain periods and that. Um, the others, I mean, some of these other people, I don't even know who they were. I don't know, and listen to these stories, and as you said, Tours of the Tail Bus, I think I watched one part of it, and that was it. I didn't want to watch anymore, you know. And then, uh,
Part of the tragedy of that, Leroy, too, is that it sounds like the factual stories are at least as entertaining as the fiction that's going out there. So why
the
not tell it
factual,
right? When you do get the book out, have you back on and talk some more
that'll
about
be
that.
good.
Yeah.
I enjoy talking to you. It's I don't many times get a chance to really express I don't do a lot of talking about riff on programs. It was nice talking to you.
Well, I appreciate so much you taking the time out and for sharing the stories with us.
Thank you.
Take good care. Hope you have a great 2020, and I look forward to that book.
All right. Thank you.
Take care.
Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye. Hey, back at Truth and Rhythm headquarters. Thank you for joining us on another magical ride with Truth and Rhythm. Whether you're watching or listening, as always, thank you so much for your continued interest and support. Be sure to subscribe. Go to YouTube. Go to the Funkin' Stuff channel. That's where Truth and Rhythm lives and breathes and thrives. Also, goodies here like TIR Quick Takes. And if you subscribe, you know what? You get the show before anyone else. It's free. If you love jazz, funk, R&B, soul, you can't miss it. Pass it along. Tell a friend. Tell family. This audience is growing, and it is a beautiful thing, all coming together for the love of this great music. Also, if you can throw us a buck or two, we could use the support financially, keeping the lights on, keeping the servers going, all these expenses. If you can help support the program, whatever you can give, much appreciated. Go to the funkinstuff.net website, and on the right-hand side of every page, you just click and you can donate through PayPal, credit card, whatever. Very easy to do and so much appreciated. And if you do a sizable donation, I will mention you on the program. Also, drop me a line. Email me at scottg@funkinstuff.net. Let me know who else you'd like to see on the show, what you enjoy about the music. Let's just kibitz and talk about stuff, talk music. You'll find that I respond very quickly, and I much enjoy the rapport and the camaraderie and the interaction. Always remember, this is your show, The True Music Lover. So for now, that's all the time we have for this one. It's a wrap. As always, Scott Dr. GX Goldfine saying, keep on vibrating to the rhythm of the one.
Hit me, yeah! Y'all better take some insurance out on your booty tonight. Because we are not responsible. Ain't it fucking that?